What is good, beautiful people? You're watching another episode of Pat's Interference, a season that is coming to an end, college football regular season over. And we're being dragged into a new era of college football, kicking and screaming, at least college football fans are, yeah?
Yeah, some
Most.
people are kicking and screaming.
Most are.
Yeah, no, it was a totally normal weekend in college football, and I think we should just chat about it lightly.
We will. But this is Pat's Interference, college football podcast. Thank you for watching live on Twitch, if you're watching right now, or if you're listening via podcast form. Thank you for that as well. We want you guys to really ask us questions today. This is a very discussion-based week. We don't have an outline. We're really just kind of recap the conference championship games because we should.
Yep.
And then we'll just kind of spend the rest talking about the last 72-ish hours of college football. And, I mean, it's been historic, explosive. It's been a crazy week.
Controversial.
But let's get the names out of the way. I'm Patrick Brickman. You are?
Patrick Norwood, howdy.
I don't know why I did that like I'm meeting you for the first time.
You are? And you are? I'm Patrick Norwood.
We know each other from college, actually. That's when we started.
11 years of this.
That's
11
when
years, 11 years of us knowing
the
each
idea
other.
was just a baby in our brains at the time, and now it's like a full-fledged 9-year-old? This is our 9th year of the podcast?
Thinking of our podcast as a human
As a human child?
is so... It's a travesty,
In a
truly.
few years, it'll be able to drive.
That's so scary. Yeah, shout out those already in the chat. Alabama Rammer jammered their way into the playoffs. Hooray. Spencer, longtime Alabama fan.
Long
We've
time.
always known that.
I'm impressed that Spencer knows what Rammer Jammer is.
I'm
I don't know that I've ever spoken about it with him, but I know that he wouldn't be on board. The other thing we do on this podcast, you'll see in the bottom right of the screen, is we play NCAA football while we talk ball. I think you start us off this week. We're about to play Kentucky. We're at Alabama. I don't know what our record is. We haven't lost yet. And we don't need to go into how that almost happened last week.
No, not at all. Okay, let's start. Should we just start chronologically throughout the day? So start at the noon game with Texas absolutely swamping.
Yes, but
Oklahoma State.
we'll do Oregon, Washington first, because
call.
that was Friday.
Good call. Friday
And then please, like I said in the comments, I don't know why. Please talk along with us because we're gonna need some comments to get through. Because we're Alabama fans. I don't know if you guys are. We're not going to be the most popular podcast hosts if you're discovering us for the first time.
Yeah, we're not going to be your friends, and we don't blame you. But we'll get to that later. But right quick, because she's decided that she wants to come on aboard.
I'll hold her up.
This week,
I'll Simba camera.
Pat's Interference is brought to you by Bosco's Restaurant. Bosco's Restaurant Bar and Grill. Go ahead and call in advance for a table. She only has one. Oregon-Washington was fun. That was a super fun, super good Pac-12 game. A great way to send the Pac-12 off into the, by Bosco, send it off into the sunset.
Yeah.
Bo Nix was Bo Picks, dude. I kept calling for it all season, and then right when I stopped saying, well, one of these games is going to show us his true form, he did.
He picked the worst week to have a down. I don't know that he necessarily played awful, but he definitely played down by his stand. It was a good game for Auburn, Bo Nix. It was a bad game for Oregon, Bo Nix.
I think he did the exact opposite of what Jalen Milroe did this week, which was when Alabama needed Jalen Milroe to be clutch, he was. Mm-hmm. When Auburn needed Bo Nix to be clutch, he threw a
You mean Oregon, but yes. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yes, Oregon. He threw a horrific interception.
Yeah, it was not a good look, which is weird because he only had 2 coming into the game.
Yeah.
So to throw one of that magnitude in that moment and that kind of boneheaded sort of decision was strange. He might have been trying to do too much. But let me ask you about this. Washington was I don't think they quite got there, but they were nearly double-digit underdogs, and they still pulled it out. Still won by 3. Second time this year that they've beaten Oregon by 3.
And did it in an emphatic fashion, too.
Yeah.
I mean, it was never
They looked like they were stacked up with them well, and they just beat them twice.
They beat them. They lined it up and beat them. They were more physical off the line of scrimmage. Penix had a great game. I think it was Forrest last week who jumped in here and said, let's nay. Michael Penix has been clutch whenever Oregon
when they need him, yes.
And he was. He absolutely was. So, no, hats off to Washington. They deserved a playoff spot. They're an undefeated conference champion. That always means that you make the playoff.
Exactly. The thing about Washington, about Washington that really impressed me was the level that their defense played matched the level from the first game. And we know Oregon has probably been, if not the best, one of the top 3 best offenses in football since the start of November. They've been on fire. They scored 70, 80 points in a game week 1. I mean, they can score points on you. They've been efficient. Washington gave them fits. They were stopping them on third down. They couldn't convert a third down. They couldn't stay on the field, give their defense a chance to breathe. I mean, I was impressed, and I'll say that I'll go as far as to say this: a lot of people are penciling in a Texas win when they play in the playoff.
I don't know why.
I don't either.
I don't know what you've seen from Washington in big games this year that makes you think that.
Not only that, but their strengths, the things that they're good at, and the things that Texas is good at. Texas plays more into Washington's strengths than I think is the other way around. And I think that will be I would still probably pick Texas. We're not going to do bowl predictions until next week. We're going to do a bowl special, so be on the lookout for that. Probably Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday next week.
Yeah, around there. I will say this. The crux of this game, the thing that this game hinged on, was the sequence where Michael Penix threw an interception, great play on the ball by Oregon.
Right.
And then immediately Bo Nix threw an interception.
Yeah.
And it actually does. It really sucks for Bo Nix, who's had a great season. That probably squashed his Heisman.
Yeah, no,
chances.
I think the Heisman's been decided.
I think Heisman's between Penix and Jaden Daniels at this point. I think it's going to go to Jaden Daniels, but we can talk about that next
I think
week.
he's,
I know
yeah,
you don't.
I think he's,
I know you don't.
I think he's landslide, right? As far as Vegas is concerned, as far as the betting odds, I haven't looked.
I believe so. I thought you were going to go high on Penix.
I think that I don't know that I would vote Penix first. I maybe would.
Oh.
I'd have to think. I would be closer to voting Penix first than probably the average football fan.
This is something really fun I need to say on the podcast.
Yeah.
I looked into us getting credentialed as Heisman voters today.
Did you really?
And it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. We're not voting on the Heisman.
But it's not as impossible as you'd think.
It's really not.
I know.
It's
I've worked with
really
Heisman
not.
voters before in local
Did
TV.
you know there's like 960 media members who vote on it? I'm like, we've had a podcast for a decade.
I don't want to speak out of turn, but my old coworker might have been one. I'm not going to say his name just because I don't know if he actually is. I don't want people to look that up, but I think he might have been a Heisman voter at one point.
Dude, we just got our first spam bob in the chat.
Oh, what are they saying? Hey, sorry for bothering you. No, this isn't spam. Yeah, hit up our intern. This is Justifiao.
Yeah.
Just hit up our intern.
Just go ahead and email patsinterference@gmail.com because I know you're real and you're definitely a real person. By the way, I just put together a
very good. Yeah,
drive.
very
Bama takes a 6-0 lead. Again, if you're on pod, we play NCAA 14. But anyway, in finality with the Pac-12 championship, like I said, it was a great way to send it off into the sunset.
I'm gonna miss that conference.
I am. That's exactly what I was about to say. I'm going to deeply miss the days of yore when Pac-12 After Dark was on after your team just survived a really scary 6 p.m. game, 3 p.m. game. You know,
big time.
I am going to miss that very, very much. I love having. I know you were anti. I love having the Pac-12 championship on Friday night.
I changed my tune. It was a nice. I had just kind of fallen in love with the idea that all the games would be happening at the same time, and I just get really jacked by that. But I found myself a little spot. I found myself a little happy corner. I turned on the game, and I enjoyed it for Friday. It was a nice little precursor to what we did get on Saturday, which was a really. I'm just going to use the word historic day. I mean, it is a day that's going to be discussed for years to come.
Long time.
What happened on Saturday?
Long time, yeah. Ja'Cory Brooks just made a reception, which is more than he's done in 4 weeks in Alabama.
I've kind of decided I might want to take him out of the starting lineup because it doesn't feel real, but I'm not going to do that because he might win the Heisman in this.
Saturday was wild. We should start from the beginning. We should start with Texas and Oklahoma State, right?
We will, yeah, absolutely.
Quinn Ewers was an absolute dog.
I need you to carry this discussion because I was working a work event, so I was only keeping up with it on my phone. So yeah, tell me what you saw.
Broke the record for touchdown passes in the Big 12 title game in the first half.
Is that really? He really broke that? I saw that he was having that kind of day. But
on top of that, their defense played from the games that I've watched. They played the best game they've played all season.
Yeah.
Maybe when they played us, they were a little bit better, but again, that was week 2. That was a different Alabama team. We'll get into that. Surely we'll get into that later. But no, Texas looked awesome. Sark's play calls, man.
Yeah.
It's just such a fun offense to watch when he's calling it, right? And the way that he moves people in motion, the way that he can manipulate a defense, get his quarterback, scheme guys open so his quarterback has an easy throw to make. It's really, really impressive. A lot of people wondering, and I don't know if Forrest is in this chat yet, if Sark made Mac Jones.
I don't want to fully say yes to that, but there might be some truth to the idea of that.
There could be some credence to it. But anyway.
I would say Mac was, at this point, it looks like Mac was almost made by a collusion of Sark, Najee Harris, Devontae Smith, Mechie, and all those dudes.
Yeah.
That was a really good team.
Yep. No, that was a really good team. So anyway, Texas looked awesome. I think they were.
This is a touchdown.
I think as soon as, gosh, it just depends on who gets open.
It's X.
As soon as they finished that game, they were a playoff team.
Yeah.
I didn't see there was a way that you could leave them out. They did what they had to do, and we'll get way more into the playoff discussion later. But what I mean by that is they went into their conference championship game, beat the team they were playing horribly.
Yeah.
I mean, beat the brakes off of them. And we're letting off the gas a good bit in the fourth quarter. I mean, could have easily run up another 10, maybe even 14 points.
I saw the score. It kept changing. Of course, I was getting annoyed because Alabama needed them to lose. But no, I mean, you're exactly right. Texas did, style points probably mattered more this year than any other year that I can remember.
Yeah.
And Texas, the last 2 weeks, I don't know what they did 3 weeks ago, but I can say the last 2 weeks, because they had a lot of close calls coming into November, end of October. And we were starting to doubt them a little bit. And Texas shut the door on everybody 2 weeks in a row. I mean, they went out and they ran up the score. They knew they had to, and Sark knew that, and he did, and I commend him for it, which is a weird thing to say, that you commend a coach for running up the score, but that's ball.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what you have to do in the sport the way that this is now. And
I'm tired of the don't run up the score part of this sport. The people who think that have not watched in the last 5, 6, 7 years. Now, granted, if it's Alabama against UTC, sure, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. Don't go up 86-10 or whatever. I totally understand that. But if it is a conference championship game, it's a rivalry game, it is a game where the voters and committee are going to be watching, go ahead.
I would run up the score any week that's not, the Citadel. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Any power opponent, especially Power 5 opponent, I am running up the score.
Tico says, go Mox, run it up. Completely agree. Go Mox, though. But yeah, no, look, man, Texas did what they had to do. That's a really, really dangerous team that had one faulty. That's just a good, college football team.
Yeah.
Tavondre Sweat, by the way, best touchdown celebration I've seen.
Yeah, I did see. I made sure to go and see that. I mean, that was awesome.
In a long
time.
And
any 300+ pound dude that's going to hit the stanky leg during a college football game is going to grab my attention.
I think I texted you right after that. If Alabama doesn't make the playoff and they don't go to the national title, I want Texas to win.
Which Sweat, I don't want to use the word contender, but he has had at some point in this season Heisman buzz because he's having that type of year. Now nobody's actually put him in the top 5 or anything. No, but when those players will kind of creep up around 10, we're going to go fullback dive. We're going to give whoever our fullback is.
Big man touchdowns are the best part about the sport, and it's not close. I want to get back to this question. Parker, remind us when the episode's winding up. I want to get back to your favorite parts of college football that are kind of nuancy like that. I want to do a segment on that.
I mean, I've never watched somebody other than the fact that Alabama's center, Seth McLaughlin, is not very good.
Tyler just asked me about something that made me giggle harder yesterday than myself on ice. We went ice skating yesterday. Did you see the Dolphins roller coaster celebration? It was awesome.
It was fantastic.
It was so funny. It was super well done, well choreographed. That's what I like, is when you can tell, they practiced this.
They do.
That's awesome.
But here's the thing. They did it at the right time. Because they did it on the road and they were winning. The last time that they did a big choreographed celebration like that was in Philly in a game that they were actively losing at the time. And I'm glad I haven't seen one since then. This was the right week to pull out because they've had some good ones. They did a conga line in the game where they beat the Broncos, scored 70 on them. They did a conga line. That was my personal favorite because Tua was front and center. Yep. But
I didn't know you liked Tua that much.
I love Tua that much.
Okay.
Did we discuss that on this podcast? I'm a big Tua guy. Do you see him at the top holding the trophy? Yeah, that was on purpose.
Right next to Devin Hester. So there was that game. There was a G5 game. Lord help me, the G5. It's a cluster, dude. It's an absolute cluster.
This is a year I kind of pieced out on a lot of G5, kind of outside of ECU, I'll be honest.
Well, we watched a lot.
I mean, I know James Madison had an undefeated season up until they got game day, but I couldn't. I know that Tulane's been good still.
It just came up on the bottom. Liberty, 49. New Mexico State,
Liberty's
35.
Undefeated. Yeah.
Why am I an ass coach? Why do you do this to me?
Oh, you got this.
You're a big boy. Get out of ass coach. You're smarter than this. You're smarter than the computer here. Anyway, Liberty's going to New Year's Six Bowl. I'm not happy about it.
I didn't know that Liberty had any kind of like New Year's Six aspirations until they were announced to be playing. Who are they playing again?
New Mexico
New
State.
Mexico. Well, that's who they played. Who they play in the? Who do they play? Where
Oregon.
is it? It's Oregon. They play. Oh my gosh.
They play Bo Nix in Oregon. Bo Nix, who's probably playing for an NFL contract, if we're honest.
Yeah, I was surprised to see that he's going to play in this game, but also not surprised because he does have money that can be won with a good showing, and it is Liberty. So he can put some good highlights on tape. I actually probably would have played if I was him too. He really did not want to run that
idea. Yeah. So they're in it. Boise won. We just missed a field goal.
I
mean,
mean,
watched it.
Super Sim is always, but it's fine. We're good.
Yeah, you had Boise. Miami Toledo was the other game, and that was a good game. Miami kind of pulled away at the end. Huge win for them in the MAC. The thing that bothers me about the G5, and this will be our broad G5 topic, is except for the G5 team that gets the I got you, baby bird. I got you. Other than the team that makes it to the New Year's Six bowl game, it sucks to go to a bowl game in the G5. Congratulations, JMU. You had a 10-win season. Enjoy the Military Bowl.
Yeah.
That sucks, man. I get it. I totally get it. But at the same time, wouldn't you rather
I have always kind of thought the same thing, though. I mean, I've thought that.
Wouldn't you rather see Tennessee take on a Tulane, an SMU, not Liberty, a Toledo, a Miami of Ohio, instead of Iowa in the Citrus Bowl this year?
I don't want to watch Iowa play anybody. I just want to watch Iowa play football.
I just want to look at the box score after the game.
I think Iowa would have a similar type of game against the Chattanooga Mocs that they would have against the Kansas City Chiefs. I think it'd be the same exact game.
Parker brings up a great offseason pod topic. G5 and P5 should 100% be separate leagues like the FCS. That's a great offseason pod, and I want to have on our G5 contingent.
We're going to have to get Paxton on here.
We need Paxton, Leslie, and Forrest to be the G5 contingent.
Because I can't really speak for them, but, I mean, you know.
Because I don't necessarily disagree with Parker here, but I don't know how you do that.
I'm not a G5 guy. I don't root for a G5 team, so I don't know if that's even inherently offensive. But there's very much credence to that.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, moving on. The next game you had, and the game that we'll probably spend the most time talking about, is Alabama and Georgia faced off, and yet another classic between those two teams, I'd say. Alabama coming out on top, 27-24. It's been a weird 48 hours and a really good 48 hours if you're an Alabama fan.
For sure.
I'm going to ask you some very broad stroke questions about this.
Ask away, baby.
What will you always remember from this game?
From the Alabama-Georgia game?
Yes.
I'll remember, this is the one where both teams felt so equal, but Georgia made two key mistakes that was the difference. They had the fumble inside the 15, and they missed a field goal.
Yep.
And I don't know that I've seen a big Alabama game that the nation was watching that ended in that way, where nothing really crazy happened, nothing memeable, nothing to make fun of anybody for, to clown Alabama, to clown Georgia. It was just Alabama played a cleaner, better game, and if one or two things had gone different, they almost felt like they matched up exactly perfect with each other.
We've got Null Nation 2023 said what's up.
Null Nation.
Let's get in it. Null Nation, I don't know who you are. I bet I probably know who you are, but I don't know who you are. Sorry.
No, so thank you for joining us. We are if we don't know who you are, you are watching a stream of two Alabama grads that are about to try to make sense of this in their own head. Welcome.
Parker says the false start that caused the missed fumble was the most important play of the game. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, it was a super fun game to watch. I think objectively, if you're a college football fan, despite the stakes and despite what happened afterward, if you were just a fan of college football, that is one of the best games you're going to get. Georgia's going to be around for a long time, man. This was not a dynasty killer by any stretch of the imagination. This was nothing like that. It was what it was. It was two really, really good teams. Missed field goal is what he meant. it was two really good teams that played two really good games, and like you said, one of them made two mistakes. I will say Jalen Milroe did not have his best stuff. He did not look like the Jalen Milroe that played against LSU or the Jalen Milroe that played in the second half against Tennessee or Ole Miss, but he was clutch when he needed to be. And in those times when he was clutch, he was awesome.
I will go a step further and say I am very happy with the way Jalen Milroe played.
I'm not saying I'm unhappy with it, but I don't think you can sit here and tell me he played his best game.
Well, no, he played Georgia. I don't know. I mean, only Bryce Young plays his best game against Georgia. If he played his best game against Georgia, we might be talking about him being a Heisman contender, like right now. But he... This game is wonky. By the way, you're going to need to tell me the clock because the camera's never blocked more of the screen for me than it is today.
Yep,
so.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. So, yes, I'll take that away. Bama's defense only giving up 78 yards rushing to Georgia after giving up way over 78 yards to Auburn the week before. I kind of called that last week on the pod. That's a good call.
I hadn't thought about it in that context yet.
I kind of called it last week on the pod when I said, I reminded you of the 2011 National Championship.
Sure.
When Alabama had played, you remember Georgia Southern as the triple option team, and then LSU came out and tried to run the option because Georgia Southern was so successful, and it just went nowhere. Well, what does Georgia do the other day? It's 3rd and 1. Georgia runs a toss sweep, a little pitch out, right? Because what did Auburn do the week before? A ton of those little pitch outs, and it just didn't work. It got stuffed every single time. I mean, you had Kool-Aid McKinstry go out completely out of the game with concussion, and it didn't really look like Bama lost a step.
Yeah.
It definitely didn't look like they lost one of their best, most talented defensive players.
No, I mean, because Amos came in and was awesome, and I want to say
Amos has been awesome.
That even after Kool-Aid went out, Arnold got a little better. He made some more plays. He had allowed a few catches. He wasn't having a bad game by any stretch, but he had allowed a couple catches, and McConkey had gotten a couple on him, and then he came out and he buckled down. He almost had a pick. Alabama dropped 4 picks. Georgia might have dropped. I mean, there were just a little couple things that could have gone here and there that could have made the game completely different on both sides. But Alabama comes out. I don't think it was the best game planning from Georgia, I would say. I think Alabama came in with a wonderful game plan, and this isn't just hindsight. I don't think Georgia scored their first drive and made it look decently easy doing it, and they didn't really keep doing. They were letting Carson Beck. They got scared to let Carson Beck drop back, and that is because Dallas Turner was getting to him. But they went away from it, I think, too much.
There was that. I also think that in this game, a lot of the Georgia fans post-game, and I think rightfully so, have been complaining about Mike Bobo and his play calling. It was a little ugly there, especially in the third. I think the third quarter is really when it kind of started turning downhill for him. And I really do think the play calling was rough. I also think you saw a case of a very, very experienced Kevin Steele, knowing that bend don't break may be the best philosophy in this game. Sort of taking Mike Bobo to the woodshed a little bit and just, okay, we'll give you 3 or 4 yards this play. We will give you 2 yards this play. And then you are going to have to convert a 3rd and 4, a 3rd and 3.
Yeah.
And we're going to stand up and just try and knock you down. And several times it worked. I asked in the chat, I said, who had the bigger game between Amos and Arnold?
Oh, good, yeah.
Tyler said Arnold for his run defense. I agree with that. As well as being, but nothing more clutch than Amos being ready to fill in on demand. I mean, the very next play, Tyler brings it out, the very next play, the ball is thrown to Brock Bowers, and it's knocked out by Amos. Period.
Yeah, they went right at him, which is good coaching. That's exactly what I would have done, but he was ready.
And he was ready, and he stepped up, and he was a guy that, a lot of the coaching staff thought was going to be good. Josh Pate mentioned it on his show on Sunday. Thought he was going to be good, but didn't really think he was going to be
He was a depth transfer.
Player.
Yeah, it was a depth
transfer.
transfer.
He's great depth, and who knows what's going to happen to him next year. But right now he's depth, and then he came out and had arguably 2 of the biggest plays of the game.
I'll put it this way, and this is I think that a thing that a lot of programs are learning to evaluate right now in the current college football. You have a guy like Trey Amos who came from Louisiana, right? He came from Louisiana. He was from a G5 school. Didn't have a name for himself, but the coaching staff saw him. Something they liked, whether or not the way he played, whether the way he fit into the scheme, or whether or not he was just like, they liked his attitude, the way he thought about football. They added him.
Yep.
Then you look at a team like LSU who looked past a guy like Trey Amos, even though he was in Louisiana, So LSU passed on him, even though he was in their backyard, to add a guy from Texas A&M like Denver Harris, who was a 5-star, coming from that Texas A&M class that was the NIL class. He had 6 tackles this year. And let's be honest, that LSU secondary wasn't good. It shouldn't have been hard for him to find playing time.
Well, and I think Alabama was victim of that, or not victim of that, but fell into that trap last year with Eli Ricks.
Eli Ricks took 10 weeks to get going.
Who is a great player.
He's a starter in the NFL right now.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Yeah. No one is saying he's not a good player. He just didn't really fit.
Yeah.
And you got to go out and you got to get guys that fit. I agree with Tyler. There were several tackles in the open field made that could have been, they were already not great plays. Mm-hmm. They could have been way worse without Terrion Arnold's open field tackling ability.
Yeah.
So he was a huge
by and large, that might be the biggest thing Kevin Steele's done is we don't miss as many tackles in the open field as we did the 2 years prior with Cincinnati with Golding.
Yeah, and that is something that Ole Miss has struggled with this season too.
Mm-hmm.
So granted, I was talking about what will we remember from this game. The defense is the thing that I'll always remember. The offense was great. I'll always remember the wheel route and the questionable call on the Isaiah Bond catch. I think by rule that's not really a catch. I'll go ahead and say that. I'll be the first one.
Yeah, it happens.
But
that's a fair
calls
cry.
like that happen every single game. But they didn't review it. They didn't deem it. Okay, no, I'm not getting stopped on 3rd and 2 at midfield by Kentucky. It's not happening. I think, I think the defense is the thing that's going to stand out for me. Caleb Downs is an incredible football player, man. He is going to be so fun to watch. If he can stay healthy,
he has a chance to be the best defensive back we've had.
He has a chance to be that guy. He has a chance to be up there with the Minka Fitzpatricks and the Landon Collins of the world.
He's well on his way. I mean, I can't think of another freshman that had the kind of impact he's had since Minka. I think Minka would be the other guy that you put in that as far as defensive backfield goes.
Yeah, Landon Collins before him, but yeah.
Yeah, Landon, that's probably the big 3. I mean, that's probably the Mount Rushmore. But I would say Downs has done a little bit more than Collins as far as just – I know Collins had a big touchdown against Tennessee his freshman year. But he's our leading tackler. That's hard to do in an Nick Saban defense regardless.
Sorry. Lee Benson is just making Kentucky his son. Oh, my gosh. Sorry about that.
I'm happy the new game's coming out, man. I miss games like this.
The other thing that we need to mention, and arguably in the grand scheme of the sport, the bigger storyline other than the obvious playoff implications, and we'll get into that in a minute, Will Reichard is now the all-time leading point scorer in NCAA football, which is so many points, I don't think that'll ever be broken.
It's going to... Yeah.
It's going
to take medical hardships and a lot of because we have to remember that Will Reichard has gotten basically an extra year that other players don't get because of a lot of players get the COVID year. So I don't think it's his 6th year kicking for us. I think it's his 5th year as our starting kicker.
Yep. He scored more points and broke the record of a 3-year starter for the Navy football team, which is unbelievable.
Yeah.
That is so many points. So shout out to Will Reichard. He's probably the most successful kicker Alabama's had. I mean, obviously,
since I've been watching.
If he has the record, but I think of the Van Tiffins and folks of that sort of famous lore and that sort of mythos. But I think Will Reichard is just, as far as being dependable. Yes, he's missed big kicks in big games. He famously missed one in the third Saturday in October last year. He missed one in the Iron Bowl this year. But I mean, he has been as clutch can be most of the time.
It's hard to beat somebody that, the team wins a national championship and your kicker didn't miss a single kick that entire season.
Yep.
That is kind of a hard legacy to top.
Right now in the NCAA 14 game for us, noted lacrosse player Ty Buckner taking snaps. If you didn't hear that news today, Ty Buckner is in the transfer portal. He is transferring to lacrosse. He's
going to play lacrosse now. Okay, one last thing that I want to bring up because I think it's worth bringing up anytime Alabama and Georgia play. Because this is, in my opinion, and I'm very biased, but this is, as far as non-major rivalries go, right? So Ohio State, Michigan, and Alabama, Auburn. This is the college. This is what Alabama, Georgia, or Alabama, Clemson was for a few years. This is the game. This is the juggernauts going at it. So when Alabama pulls this off this year, the way they've done it, those two are always jockeying for position at the top of college football. Where does that dial move for you?
I think you have a slight shift back to even. I think it's definitely been in Georgia's favor the past couple of years. Obviously,
For sure. They won
back-to-back national
back-to-back.
titles, and the last time they lost was in Atlanta.
And they beat us in one of those.
Oh, look at that. But yeah, no, I think the dial just sort of.
Oh, that's an end.
Nope.
Never mind.
I think the dial just sort of moved back to even par.
Yeah.
I think those teams are going to be slugging each other left and right for recruits and during games. I mean, next year it is the third game of the season. Georgia comes to Tuscaloosa.
I keep forgetting that.
It is going to be a marquee matchup. It's going to be huge.
Now, if Alabama wins the title,
whoever wins that game, or whoever loses that game, is going to root for the other team the rest of the way. Because if the other team makes it the rest of the way, undefeated, that is your ticket to a 12-team playoff. Period.
Yeah.
Full stop.
Yeah.
Our only or one of our two losses is an undefeated Georgia or an undefeated Alabama, or one loss Georgia, one loss Alabama. There's your ticket. That's it. So,
or just be in the SEC.
Yeah. It's yeah.
Jerkish thing to say today, but
no,
I couldn't resist.
Okay, let's move on to the night games a bit. I don't really want to talk about the G5 anymore. Sorry, G5 folks, but
no, just 2 more games, right?
Nothing in those night games was exciting, and they don't really have implications.
And we weren't watching them.
SMU did win the American, and is now moving to the ACC, which is hilarious.
I'm impressed that you remember these off the top of your head because I typed those scores in there and I don't remember what names I was typing.
I don't remember the scores, but I know that SMU won. Kendrick Law. So yeah, you had Michigan and Iowa. Woof. Michigan did not play a fantastic game, by the way. They played a fine game. They looked all right. But I don't think you would talk to a Michigan fan who thinks that that's exactly how they want to play the rest of the season. That being said, Iowa's defense is very good. People underestimate Iowa's defense because they just think of the meme of Iowa, but they won 9 games for a reason, folks, and you know how the offense has been. It's not because of the offense. Something had to happen. So, no, their defense is awesome. It's just we've got a lot of Alabama kicker discord going on in the chat right now.
Oh, what's the vibe?
Folks talking about Kate Foster a lot, which I'd rather not. I know Kate Foster's wife, and she was always very nice to me in class. And my one interaction with Kate Foster outside of football was not very nice, and he was very rude to everyone in the room.
I sold him frozen yogurt.
You did. You did.
Actually, this is one of the more embarrassing, young, college-y, early freshman college football memories I have of myself was I worked at Yogurt Mountain. He came into Yogurt. This is Cade Foster, the kicker. I mean, it's the kicker of the team, and he wasn't a well-liked kicker either. But he came in, and we were doing one of those. This is so shitty to even bring up at this point. We were doing one of those donate some money, and you get to write your name on the thing. We stick them all over the store. So Cade Foster came in, and he donated whatever he donated, which good job for you. And then,
especially in college, that's
right.
That's pretty stand up.
I wasn't doing that. Not at 18. And I kept it. I kept his name. I didn't ever hang it up. I just kept it. I just thought it was I knew it wasn't, I'm not saying that I kept it because I thought it's an autograph.
One day this is going to mean something.
Yeah.
And then he misses 3 kicks against LSU.
I'm actually just go ahead and get to the end of this game.
Parker brought up, will that bar keep giving out free beer until Iowa scores in their bowl game? No, because I don't think they're going to score in their bowl game.
I think they went out of business on Saturday.
They actually did quite well. Apparently they did great.
Yeah.
It was a banger event, and they got a ton of press. Good for them. They had one down Saturday paycheck-wise, and now they will live in fame for the next month.
Oh, brilliant. That's good. That's good marketing then.
Good marketing. Michigan didn't look awesome. They didn't look bad. Iowa looked terrible, and that's about what we've come to expect from Iowa. You had the ACC title game.
It happened.
Florida, God, I feel so bad for Florida State, man. This sucks, dude. This sucks, man. Florida State won the game. Mm-hmm. They did not look dominant. There were several opportunities for Louisville to sort of take the lead or force somebody's hand or anything, and they did none of it. Mm-hmm. Jack Plummer looked, no relation to Jake Plummer, forks up. Jack Plummer looked terrible.
Yeah.
Terrible. His last, the drive summaries of the final quarter of that game read like an obituary. Pass batted down to the line of scrimmage. Pass batted down on the line of scrimmage. Pick. Incomplete pass. 30-yard completion, threw a pick on the next play. Like, it's miserable, dude.
Were we watching more them being bad or more FSU's defense standing up to the situation at hand?
I think it's a combination of both.
Yeah.
FSU's defense was playing with their hair on fire. They had a lot of really unique blitz packages.
Mm-hmm.
There were a lot of coverage sacks. I also think Louisville's offense just kind of sputtered, and the rocket had run out of fuel before it broke atmosphere.
Hey, this is fun. Our next game is going to be number 2 against number 3 Arkansas,
Okay.
both undefeated. So
let's fire this up.
And we're at Arkansas. Let's do it.
No. Okay, we should probably. That was it for. They won by 10.
16-6, and yeah, I mean that was it. And then as soon as that game hit curtains, I mean it was 11 miles an hour on Twitter the rest of the night. And 11 miles an hour is fast for Twitter. I just made that up.
Yeah, that was. I like that though.
Yeah, 11 miles an hour on Twitter. I mean, all night. I mean, at 4 a.m., I'm seeing people still tweeting about it. I wasn't up at 4 a.m., but...
It was almost like 12 miles an hour if you think about it.
Ooh, it was close. I wouldn't quite... Yeah. No, it was... And then we ended up with what we ended up with. And I don't really know where to start with it all. But Michigan, Washington, Texas, Bama is the 4.
That's the playoff. We should lay down facts first and then give our opinion. That's what we were taught to do. I think Michigan and... so Michigan, Washington, like you said, Texas, Alabama. The committee's reasoning was we were supposed to pick the best 4 teams. We feel like these are the best 4 teams. Had Travis Hunter been playing, this is what they said, this is not what I'm saying. Had Travis Hunter played and was still playing and wasn't hurt, then they would be in the playoff.
Mm-hmm.
That is what they said.
That is what they said.
That sucks to hear because then you have people like Jordan Travis, who has been... I'm not going to speak about him because I don't know anything about him, but from everything that I've seen as a stand-up guy, feels guilty that he broke his leg, which is insane.
Yeah.
And goes on to tweet like, man, I wish we would have just lied about my prognosis and said I could.
He said, I wish I'd broken my leg earlier, which is one of the hardest sports quotes I've ever seen typed.
And then I heard someone else, or I saw somebody else tweet, maybe Florida State should have just lied and said he'd be back for the playoff. And then said, oh, wait, never mind, once they got in. That probably would have gotten them in. They didn't get in. Alabama got in. Those are the facts. Now we can do opinion time.
Mm-hmm.
I will go first.
You can go first since I'm starting, and yeah.
This sucks, dude. This is one of those parts of the sport that just absolutely sucks. It's one of the reasons why, while we love the playoff, there are a ton of flaws with the playoff that I think we romanticized the 14 playoff a lot when it was like a concept.
Oh, of course we did. It was new.
And thought it was going to be so much better than the BCS because it won't, we won't have teams being left out and you won't have 2 SEC teams, 2 teams from the same conference getting in. And now, I know Texas is technically Big 12 right now. Right now you have 2 Big 10 teams and 2 Big 12 teams, or 2 SEC teams. I'm sorry. And it sucks. You have, Josh Pate said it. He took the words out of my mouth today. When I was watching his video on it, he said that he hated that you have a group of grown men assigning a point value to a football player. That they think that he is worth this amount of points and XYZ. That sucks. This is a tough part of the sport. The people who are mad at the SEC, I don't really understand. They didn't make the committee. They didn't.
I know, but I understand.
The committee was made because people were mad at the SEC.
Yes.
Tell me I'm wrong.
I understand anger. I'm not saying it's the SEC's fault. I'm saying it is ESPN's and the TV rights' fault. But sure. I hated things that weren't the Patriots' fault when the Patriots are winning every year.
I get it. But you're channeling your anger in the wrong direction. This is a sport and a system that is on the whole broken. Florida State fans that is a huge brand. That is very knowledgeable football culture. You have a lot of people who have been watching this sport for a long time crying foul to things that they were rooting for 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. I take issue with that. I take issue with people who are mad at Alabama fans for being happy for their school. Look, dude, it sucks, man. No one was happier about us getting in the playoff than these 2 dudes. And no other podcast feels worse right now for Florida State than us. I'll say that hands down. His parents are both Florida State people, through and through. You grew up a Florida State fan.
I did.
This sucks, dude.
It's ass.
But guess what? They made the right call. Sorry. If it is truly for best, it's truly for most deserving, or over for most deserving, then that's what you've got here. It sucks because that's the exact antithesis of what they've done all along. They've always done for most deserving. For some reason this year they decided to flip it. That has people irate. I think the other thing that has people mad is the fact that, big man TD, is the fact that they ranked Florida State 4th 2 weeks ago. In the second to last.
They're having me go for this
playoff ranking. I think you should. I think you're gonna pick this up. I think had they not done that, no one would be talking about this. I think had you had Texas at 4, no one would be talking about this, because then you could have Texas move up to 3, and obviously Alabama, their only loss is the number 3 team in the country. And I think a lot of people would have swallowed that pill a lot better. But instead, they put Florida State at 4th, pissed off a bunch of Florida State fans when they won. You got punished for winning. And that sucks, and I hate it. But again, I don't disagree with it. I just disagree with the philosophy and the reasoning and how we got here in the first place. And again, I'm going to bang this drum till the day I die. BCS, this is a non-issue. The BCS got it so much more correct than people realize, and let 2 bad years of the BCS out of the 20 years it was around ruin all of it. Until next year when there's 12, which, by the way, is too many. And just wait until the discussion becomes, well, number 13 is obviously better than 12. It's going to happen.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to get too much into the whole, because we've had that discussion many, many times. Is yes, BCS was probably a little bit more successful than the 4-team. And then I've been saying, all right, I am fully a believer in 8. I don't know why we skipped 8. And it's not even worth having that discussion. It would be if we were stuck with the 4-team. But we have a new system coming. So I don't want to get too much into that. We agree on a lot of that because...
Sorry, I don't want to... Keep going.
Yeah, I mean, if I have stuff to address, I can get my take in a minute.
Go ahead.
The committee succeeded in the goal when the goal is best 4 teams. It's a broken and dead and beaten system that should have been gone with years ago. We liked it when it started. You mentioned that, and I remember that. Right when the 4-team playoff came, it was new. Yep. A playoff in college football sounded awesome. We all love March Madness, right? So we were excited. The first year was a little wonky. They got it. The next couple years it maybe didn't have as much drama. But it's been 10 years of the playoff. By about year 4 or 5, it was becoming pretty obvious that this system is flawed. And flawed, the system being voting on this from a committee, because
a bunch of, by the way, old dudes. Just really crusty old dudes.
A bunch of really crusty old dudes having a committee. There's no way to have that be impartial, and that was the thing. That's what we were promised at the beginning, back in 2013-12, when we were forming what this was going to look like. We were promised this will be an impartial, and if they have to vote on themselves, they will be recused from that vote. And their whole job is just 4 best teams. And you're like, Jack, that's going to create some great football. In a lot of ways it did, in a lot of ways it didn't. Yeah, I mean, I get it. I can't bounce around it. I am elated that Alabama was the beneficiary of a broken system.
Yes.
I am. I'm elated. Where I guess I kind of started to pull away from you is, yes, don't be mad. Yes, if we're just calling a spade, this isn't Alabama's fault. This isn't the players' fault. But I do get the anger just because, like, you have to channel it somewhere. And yes, they're very mad at that. I've seen enough anger at the committee. But at the same time, it was to Alabama. And I'm an Alabama fan, so I go, yeah, we are better than Alabama's a better team than Florida State right now. I fully believe it. I fully believe it. But I get the anger.
I do too.
I get the anger.
I didn't say I didn't. I just think directing it at Alabama is stupid.
But it is part of the territory, and it increasingly becomes more the more that Alabama gets away and is the beneficiary of every single time this happens. And that is what happened. Every time somebody benefits from this, it is Alabama. And this is the worst one yet.
One thing I want to bring up is, I see this a lot where people keep saying every single time this happens, it's for Alabama, it's in Alabama's favor. Wrong. Alabama's gotten in the playoff. What? No.
Ohio State did it last year too, I suppose.
Let me finish.
Okay.
No, I'm not yelling.
All right.
Outward anger. The last time this happened in Alabama's favor, where they snuck into the playoff, they won the whole thing. They won the national title. They were the best team in the country.
Yeah.
So I don't want to hear that every time this happens, it always goes to... No. There's happened one other time for Alabama. Name the other.
It's happened 3 times.
Name
3
the
times
other.
Alabama's made it into the playoff with either having a loss and being on the outside looking in and slipping in at 4. 2 of them, it was because they weren't their conference champ, and this one was because they had the loss to the team that was in the playoff. It's not exactly apples for apples, but it's the same thing.
The last time they did it, they won the national title.
Yes, you're right.
So again, you can cry about how we're the beneficiaries of this and Alabama always gets it. Yeah, they've shown that they can take that.
But but when Alabama's winning every single time, yes, nobody wants to say it. We all know that a lot of it is sour apples.
Yes.
But we're
saying the same thing in different tones.
We are. As somebody that has rooted, you root for sports that don't win, right? I root for sports that don't win, and I get super sour apples.
Do not talk that way about my Nashville Predators.
Exactly. Exactly. Right? And they're not even a losing program, but you get what I'm, they haven't,
relax.
Right?
Let's take it easy.
You hate the Red Wings. I hate the Patriots.
No, but I hate the Red Wings because they're bad people.
Mm-hmm. And guess what? Everybody thinks that we're bad people because we have a bunch of asshole fans that don't act right when things like this happens.
Yep.
So I get the anger.
Yeah, I do. Like I said, I totally get the anger. I just don't. I think you're channeling it towards the wrong people. You should channel it towards a broken system.
I want to get back on my train of thought.
Yes, please.
So, listen. They succeeded in the best 4, and it's a shame that that's the system we have. But it's the system we have. I will address. I've seen a lot of people going, "Well, the ACC could have voted against this whatever year." Don't bring that up. That doesn't matter because that's not who we're sad for. We're not sad for the ACC.
No,
we're sad for the Florida State players.
That's the dumbest conference in the world. And there's nothing you should be sad for them.
Well, what happened was the ACC, the Pac-12, and the Big Ten, I want to say, the Alliance, whatever they call themselves, to however many years ago, they could have voted in the 12-team playoff earlier. They voted against it. I don't know the reasons why. I didn't research them. I don't care. I'm not sad for the ACC today.
No.
I'm not sad for the people who have money at stake. I'm not sad for the talking heads. I'm not sad for Booger McFarland. I'm not sad for Danny Cannell. I'm sad for the players that just won every single damn game they wanted to play, and they don't get to play for a champion. And they're Florida State. This isn't like we got a one-off year where Marshall won a bunch of games. It's not a one-off year where...
This is not a UCF.
No, it's not even it's not even a UCF. It's Florida State. This is a team that's won 3 titles. They have one of the last, 5 or 6 teams even win a title?
Yep.
Because the SEC keeps winning it?
And they beat the daylights out of pretty much everyone they played this year.
Mm-hmm.
It's just when they didn't.
But and I get it. Alabama didn't beat the daylights out of every team they played this year.
No, not at all.
When we try to simplify it, and then we tried to simplify it to best 4, and then over the course of the next 10 years, the definition of what deserves to be a playoff team gets muddied up and muddied up and muddied up. And then we throw a doomsday scenario on the very last season. There's not much to say, except Florida State won't be playing for a national title this year, and they won't be playing in the playoff. And that is the way
of the other things
that had to end up going, I guess.
That frustrated me about yesterday was the amount of people who said, well, the ACC went 6-4 against the SEC this year. Great. You're comparing 6-6 teams. You're literally comparing barely bowl eligible teams to 2 of the best 5 teams in the country.
I don't even like when it just only becomes about conference. It only becomes about all that. That wasn't smart, but
yeah. Okay, we had a great question.
Yeah.
Parker came in. Okay, well dude, let me read. He said, if it should be best 4, then shouldn't Georgia be in? No, I don't think Georgia's one of the best 4 teams in the country.
I fully do. If I have to think that Alabama is...
I don't. I don't.
Do you think they're 5?
Who do you leave out? Who do you put in instead of... You leave out...
We're not doing who do you leave out. We're doing who are the best... Who are your best 4 teams ranked in order?
Yes.
Michigan,
Washington, Texas, Alabama. There they are.
You're taking Washington over Georgia more than 5 times out of 10 on a neutral field? Because I promise you I'm not. I'm taking them 7 to 8 times out of 10.
That was incredible.
It was awesome.
That's fine, but you're going to have to give me a good reason as to why you would do that. Other than Georgia's a better team.
That is the reason. If Parker has a point. If we're truly going best 4 teams.
What stat do you have that shows to me that Georgia is a better team? Because it's not strength of schedule. Prove it. Show me that they're the better
You can't
team.
prove anything with any of this, though. That's the whole point. That's why you
So
can't do
that's why you use
best
computers
four.
to do it.
But that's not what we're talking about right now. Yes, I get that. We're both in agreement with that. But if Parker's saying is, hey, we want to just only say best 4 teams, then I could guarantee you I will find many advanced metrics that show that Georgia is one of the best 4 teams. I don't have them in front of me, but I promise you I will find them.
No, and I'm sure you will, but I'm playing devil's advocate here. That this gets to be a slippery slope of best 4 teams, best 4 teams,
Yes.
best 4 teams.
Because you're absolutely right, Parker.
By the way, if Oregon and Washington play 10 times, I think Oregon wins 6 of them.
Mm-hmm.
But that didn't happen.
I know, that's the whole point.
So
metrics will tell us that every game outside of Oregon, Washington, that Oregon was the better team.
And by that logic, why is Bama in ahead of Georgia?
That's the point that I think Parker's
so then
making.
if we're just going to if we're going to keep doing this, this eats itself. This is a system that just eats itself over and over and over again.
Yeah, but you almost started disagreeing with Parker before we circled around to the point. Because I do think Georgia is one of the, I think Georgia is probably the best team in college football. I do. I don't think they played anywhere near their A game on Saturday.
So why do you think they're not in the playoff?
Because the result mattered. Because they lost on a Saturday to Alabama. Yeah. And that is why best 4 teams by year 4 or 5 was very obvious that doesn't work. But they didn't change it. Nobody changed it because everybody's so slow to make changes until NIL's here. Now all of a sudden, we're very quick to make that change because, the government told us we had to, and there was no plan. And I don't see the down and distance. I forgot it was 3rd down.
You're okay. Look, I'm not saying I disagree with any of you. Mm-hmm. I think Georgia's a great team. You know that. I've made that very obvious on this podcast. Mm-hmm. Probably are better than Washington. I think Washington would actually give them a really tough time, just for what it's worth.
Right. Top 4 teams should give them a tough time.
And I'm not convinced that they're a head and shoulders better team. But
there isn't a dominant team this year. That's kind of what we learned because Georgia lost. We didn't know. We thought Georgia might just be the one dominant team, and they weren't. So I would put Georgia, Alabama, Michigan, and probably Texas is who I think are the best 4 teams on a neutral field. If they play a 7-game series like the NBA or baseball, I would probably have Georgia winning that.
There's a really famous Bear Bryant quote about this. Mm-hmm. He won a national title. The opposing coach walked to midfield, shook his hand, and said, if we played a 7-game series, we would beat y'all. And he said, well, good thing we're not. Football's played in 1 game, and walked off.
that is the current issue plaguing the 4-team system, which I did, and I'll admit.
Rhodes, I've said it since 2012, 7-game series for all playoff games. Let's keep this going into June, baby.
Every single player in college football on those teams would be Antonio Brown. Antonio Brown before the end of the year.
They have CTE and bad knees by the time they are 23.
Yeah, so
because again, on this podcast, oh my gosh, what a pick. On this podcast, you have said multiple times tonight, the committee tried to put in the best 4 teams, and they did that. Mm-hmm.
And I've agreed the whole time that Alabama should have been in, if just by the bylines of what the sport is right now, and it changes next year. But if you have to either do what you say you're going to do, say what it is, or change it altogether. But nobody wanted to have that discussion, and this year is when it ended up fucking sucking for everybody.
All right. God dang it, dude.
I mean,
yeah, it sucks.
We had this discussion too late, man. We have been saying that this kind of stuff is not going to fly one day, and then we just thought, okay, maybe we'll get to the 12th team before it happens.
Here's what I said to multiple people, sort of tongue in cheek, but also kind of, well, why not? Why not make this an 18 playoff this year? Back up the national title and I know why, guys. Stop yelling. I get it. It's the logistics. It's getting people ready. It's getting event venues, and they've already got their. You don't think there's a concert at the Cotton Bowl, and yeah, I get it. But if you just have the playoff, push back 1 week. 1 week. You give teams enough time for their staff, not even their game ops crew, the field crew, everybody to get their field set. And you say, okay, the first round of games are going to take place home and home. If you are the lower seed, you are going on a away game. Okay? Like they're doing next year. Mm-hmm. If you just say that and say before rivalry week, hey guys, heads up, this is what we're doing. This is getting hairy. We can already see it coming down the pipe. This is what we're doing. Done. That's it. It's done.
I would sign up for that. I would do it.
I don't.
even
like,
again, even at Alabama, they wanted to do it.
Seconds left in the half.
Oh, thank you for telling me.
If you have, I'm sorry, I didn't say it sooner. If you have,
I can still score here. I'll just cheese it.
If you have that situation, this all goes away. I want to ask you a question, and I'll ask Parker the same question.
I shouldn't be able to. I shouldn't cheese the computer like that. That's annoying.
Oh, what are you doing?
I hit Y. That was one of those Milroe overthrows.
Okay. If Georgia beat Alabama, who's in the playoff right now?
That's a good question. Let me pause. Let me think.
Obviously, and I'm not saying blows them out. Let's say flip the score. Let's say it is 27-24 Georgia. Who is in the playoff? I don't think Alabama's still in the top 10, by the way, if they lose that game.
No, they're a non-factor. we all knew that going in.
Which, again.
I think Bama would have fallen. I actually don't know if they would have even fallen past Missouri, though. It depends on what the score ended up being. They wouldn't have fallen farther than Missouri if they beat them, if they lost to them by less. So they might have stayed still, but that doesn't matter. Georgia would have stayed 1. Michigan would be 2. Washington would end up 3. And I mean, I feel like the committee, and here's the thing that I haven't really even brought up in this podcast. I think the committee would have put in Texas because I think money.
Parker agrees with you.
Money speaks so much louder here than anybody wants to say. I mean, people do want to say it, but
they've said it ad nauseum for
right,
2 days now.
But no, money talks so much more here than anybody really even understands, I guess is the point I'm getting at. Nobody was open, so I just threw it up.
That's okay. Arm punts are okay.
And so, I think Texas would have still gotten it over them.
A large paragraph, but essentially said what we said earlier, which is what they did. They had an impossible job to do, and everybody pretty much knew that, but their justification is what's getting them in trouble. Right?
Yeah, I turned off before, but yeah.
Well, I didn't.
I heard. I mean, I went back and watched it because I didn't want to hear it.
Was awful. And all that it came out to was, you're Florida State and you should feel bad because a player got hurt.
I guess what I was trying to say, I knew this would be bad. I've since gone back and watched. I've seen the quotes, I've seen the posts, I've seen the video, I've seen it all. But when it happened live, I was like, Alabama got in, I took a sigh, I turned off the TV because I did not care to hear how it happened. I just knew that it did, and then I waited for a text from my parents.
Yep.
And I got some doozies. I won't lie. I got some doozies.
As you should have.
But
yeah.
Again, it's a broken system. Hate the game, not the player.
Okay, Brandon says, my only gripe is that if you leave FSU in the previous week at 4. Yeah, Brandon, we said the same thing earlier, man. What made them move them out of the top 4? They could have avoided all this by moving him out the week after Travis got hurt. Exactly. Mm-hmm. You put him at 5, 6. Yeah. You put Oregon at 5 or Oregon at 4 and Texas at 6. Whatever. This is a lot less hairy. It's still hairy.
Another reason that weekly, starting in November, weekly updates are very, very stupid by the committee. They should have never ever entertained that idea. That was one of the dumbest things that the committee, that the people that set up the 14 playoff did was, hey, starting in November, we're going to tell you every week our top 20. That was so dumb.
Brandon said he just hopped in. Yeah, but you literally could do our jobs right now, Brandon. You said exactly what we've been saying. It sucks, dude. I freaking hate this for FSU. I really do. I do want to ask you, would there be this much uproar if, say, Georgia had beaten Alabama and Texas got in over Florida State? Would there be this much uproar?
I truly don't believe so.
Would there be anger at Texas like there is at Alabama?
No, and I think that speaks to my point earlier. It makes it tougher.
Oh. Sorry.
No, good.
Milroe just threw one of the worst balls I've ever seen in this game.
The fact that it's Alabama adds more fuel to the fire. Just the fact that a quarterback was caught deflating footballs in a big game, it added fuel to the. No, I'm being serious. Alabama is the New England Patriots of college football. This is a good comparison.
We just take so many shots.
No, but Forrest understands why people were mad at that, right?
I know.
He gets why I'm pissed, and I I can promise you no amount of PowerPoints you show me is going to change my opinion on this, because I am an absolute hater of that program, and Alabama's got haters, and it doesn't matter. So I think
here's the thing.
To circle around and answer your question, yes, there would have still been anger. Yes, we would have gotten all the same quotes that we got from the coaches, but I think the by and large Twitter kind of social media outcry would have been about 25% less. Not all the way gone, obviously, because it's still an undefeated team that didn't get in. But yes, the fact that it was for Alabama again added to it.
4 best.
4 best.
Brandon says the other thing is these rankings are so dumb. Ohio State is 6 after losing to Michigan. Why? They can only move down. When it comes to conference week, oh boy. you might as well put all the Power 5 teams in contention in the top 6, and then it's much better.
That's a good. You're opening avenues in my mind. Why is it last year that when Ohio State lost by 22 to Ohio State at home, they didn't even move? They still made the playoff because that result didn't matter. I mean, it's just.
And then
it's been messy the whole way through.
Now you have an 8-team jumping in 4 spots, or jumping up 4 spots. Parker said, something. I forgot about Ohio State. If we're talking best, Ohio State is better than FSU. Ooh.
I agree, though. I do. This is the Florida State without Travis Hunter. Jordan Travis, I mean. I think that Ohio State would. Now, and I could be wrong. We don't know.
Body of word.
I don't know. Again, and this is where you go back to you can only judge by what happened on the field. I don't know that Ohio State would blow out FSU. There aren't enough like opponents to really glean that. But I do think that if the teams as they are today, let's just pretend they had a game on Saturday, I think that Ohio State would run up and down the field. Not run up and down the field, but I think they'd beat them. I think they would beat FSU pretty handily because FSU wouldn't be able to score.
What you mentioned is the key thing there when trying to determine what is best. Which is they don't have like opponents. There's not like a lot of avenues that you can really, because there's a lot of people who are like, I was garbage, I was terrible. Hey, guess what? Iowa could slip up and beat a really good SEC team if they wanted.
They could.
There's nothing to say that, like, sometimes there's just really bad matchups. That is football. That's actually just sports. I think a great example this year, I think the Atlanta Braves were the best team in baseball this year.
You were absolutely correct.
Guess
they
what?
won most games.
They had a horrible matchup against the Phillies.
2 years in a row, and I'm not trying to rub it in. You're right. 2 years in a row, they don't match up well against that team.
They did not match up well against that Phillies team, and they lost. It's so much more about matchups, and that's why it's so hard to do a best when you're playing such a vast array of different styles.
130-something teams.
And conferences. You've got Washington who are playing against offenses that would absolutely gas a Mississippi State defense. But you also have Big Ten teams that would get stonewalled by that same Mississippi State defense. That's how it is. That's part of the game. And that's why you need computers.
People don't know how to talk ball, and we took people that don't know how to talk ball and put them in charge of the entire sport.
Yep.
And that's it. That's what happened.
Best is such a garbage term. Yep, I think OSU beats FSU. Yep. So them saying best 4 got in. What the hell does that even mean? Exactly. Everyone beats FSU in their current state, unfortunately. They keep winning without him. They do keep winning without him, but they also beat a 5-loss Florida team and a Louisville team that, I don't know, you watched them the other night.
No, I hear you. I hear you. The people that commented that. I do understand. They have kept winning. The reason is that nobody that matters and votes on this cared that they kept winning. They cared that they weren't winning as impressively as they previously had been. And again, with the dog shit system we have, that's enough to really end a team season, which is stupid, and that's why we don't have that anymore.
I think you can
starting next year.
You can also look at that game Saturday and see that FSU team is not. It's a shell of what it was. The defense was awesome.
Yes.
The defense is incredible. That's half the. Did you just take a 19-yard sack?
I didn't mean to.
That's honestly really impressive.
I hit the button to throw it, but he did a pump fake.
FSU versus Florida is arguably as much of a hate game with voodoo as the Iron Bowl. Good point. That's a really good point. Man.
Yeah, I mean Alabama barely beat Auburn, so we can't even really do that. That's a rivalry game.
A lot of Florida State people were saying that, bringing that game up.
Yeah.
How are you going to put Alabama in when they nearly lost to an Auburn team that lost?
Our performance was just as impressive as FSU's against Florida as ours was. And Auburn just lost to New Mexico State by 21.
Yep.
So, I mean, we barely beat our rival that had a bad season. Both teams did that. Yep. So, I don't know. I mean, it's just...
Brandon brings up a good point. Second string will be back. Yeah, Tate Brodemaker would have been back. That's a great point. Again, Brandon, because you weren't on earlier, one thing that I said was Florida State, if they just lie about the prognosis of Jordan Travis right after the injury and say, oh, he may be back for the playoff, and just keep delaying the point. Yeah, he's looking good. He's doing great in rehab. They're in the playoff right now. If they just lie about that, and you're about to see that, by the way. That's one thing Parker and I were talking about with hockey injuries. You don't get he tore his Achilles. Yeah, he broke his leg. Now, the Jordan Travis one was pretty obvious what happened.
Sure.
Hockey, you get upper body, lower body. And college football is about to be that.
That will get shut down the first time it happens.
Yes.
That will get shut down the first. Because the NFL, you can't. You have to be, which is why the Bengals are in trouble.
For sure.
The Bengals just did that with Joe Burrow. We just saw that in the NFL, and they are going to come down hard on them.
You're going to have teams lie.
Yeah.
It is going to happen.
They're going to have to change the rules because of this.
Yeah, man. Like, it's going to get kind of, and there may already be a rule in place that prevents this, But it's going to get ugly if it starts turning that way, because then you're going to have, oh, no, he's fine. And, this pinky's, like, turning that way, There's going to be a lot of stuff like that, dude.
How quickly, I don't really, I mean, I kind of feel like we're reaching the end of this. We're kind of talking in circles, so we'll keep going, though. How quickly, do you think that we will look back at what happened? Do you think this is a death knell at some point to the ACC?
Yeah, big time. Big time. Yes, the ACC
That's
died.
not an overreaction in
The
your
ACC
mind.
died yesterday.
Yeah.
Now, an interesting question that I'll sort of flip back to you. Is ACC basketball dead? Because here's what I could see happening from this, is everyone in college basketball goes, no. We're not doing this. This is not happening. We are not going to, Cal and Stanford basketball are not playing against North Carolina in a conference game next year. We're not doing it. We are breaking off and making our own entity, and we are separate from football. Notre Dame does it. Why can't we?
Are you saying this more as an idea, or do you think that this is where this will go?
I absolutely, not next year.
Yeah.
But I think there's going to be a situation where teams start looking at their travel schedules. They start looking at budgeting flights. Just wait till the first time Cal has to fly to North Carolina on a Tuesday, fly back to play a home game on a Saturday, and then fly back Monday night to play in Durham. That's it, dude. That's it. That's so much money for flights. That's so much money for luggage and gear and hotel rooms and everything when you're already traveling. Basketball is not going to survive that. They won't. So I really do think you're going to see a world soon where football and basketball are two completely different
That would
things.
be outstanding. That would be absolutely outstanding.
I think this is, sorry, to answer your question, because I don't think I ever did, I think this is the death of ACC football. I don't think it's the death of the ACC.
I wonder if they're allowed to do that. I wonder if there's part of agreeing to become a conference that says you can't do that,
We keep using this word allowed in college football, and we have to stop. No one... There's no, I don't know what the contract would look like that would prevent you from doing that. If you have a realistic, okay, how's this situation? We can take this to court if you'd like to, but you're harming student athletes right now by making them travel this much in a sport that is way different from football, where they're only traveling once a week.
That's a fair point.
That's
a fair point.
There's your argument, and guess what? As soon as you bring up court, based on how NCAA lawyers have been in the last 3 or 4 years, they will not want to go to court. I could absolutely see this happening, and it happens everywhere.
You're kind of fleshing out the story to the point where it makes a lot of sense.
Mid-majors do this all the time. I worked at a mid-major. I know. Look, you don't want to be in the Big South Conference in lacrosse, you can go join the Big Sky, the SoCon, right? That happens all the time. I don't see why the Big Four, and again, I'm probably making this way too elementary, and there's probably way more hoops to jump through, and I know there are. But that's just what I could see happening. I bet Chad is losing it when I just said that.
My only wonder is, when you said the thing about court, it kind of had me pause, but I don't know.
Man, Chad is blowing up right now.
I think the number one priority in every athletic department, just roll through that while I kind of gather my thoughts. I think the number one priority in every single athletic department right now, especially considering Sunday morning, they don't want to be left out. College football's king. That is all anybody cares about for the next few years as far as aligning yourself goes. And I don't think anybody's going to act in that way until all that dust has settled, and then I can see what you said becoming a thing. Because
again, I don't think it's a next year thing.
Right. And I heard you say that. You did say that. But for the time being, I think these schools are going to tell their student athletes to suck it up. Yep. Unfortunately, that's what's going to happen. Because
sucks, dude.
FSU is going to be very tunnel vision trying to get out of ACC.
Guess what conference is about to have the least amount of travel in their conference?
SEC.
SEC
right?
or the Big 12. Either of those.
Yeah, Big 12 would be another one.
I could absolutely see a world where you have other schools flooding to those conferences.
Hey, our backups run against the number 3 team on the road.
Wow. It's almost like we know how to run an offense. Mike Bobo, call us. All right, I'm going to go through some of these, and I'm just going to go through some highlights on the chat because y'all went off, which I love.
I'm going to answer Forrest just because I saw it. When it goes to 12 teams, that's going to be 4 automatic qualifiers because it's going to be a Power 4. So 4 automatic qualifiers. If you win your conference, which is, I want to talk about this more in the offseason because I'm actually realizing the car on the way home, this is very exciting. and I hadn't thought of it in this way, but 4 automatic qualifiers. If you win your conference, you're in. 1 group of 5, the best team from the group of 5, I believe, makes it in still, and then the rest is at large. Now, I don't know how they do the at large, but I will tell you right now, it doesn't need to be committee. I need to look before next week's podcast, but it needs to be by some kind of computer, because don't leave it up to the committee, because we'll be arguing the same thing all over again, and we'll be crying for some student athletes that are getting screwed over.
Okay, wait. Sorry. This is awesome. Great Discord in the chat. I'm very happy with the chat tonight. It's been awesome. Yes, Forrest Parker, we're going to have a roundtable. I've just decided this. You're going to love this. We're going to have a roundtable discussion with all my G5 and FCF people and all of our P5 people. And we're going to sit and we're going to hammer it out.
We're going to have to buy some more mics.
A January pod or steal them from work. Not your work.
I was going to say, I wouldn't do that, and we've never done that.
We've never done that. All this equipment we bought on our own. Mm-hmm. Always have.
I'm going to stick with that. That is absolutely true.
Lacrosse player with just absolute wheels. Oh my gosh, he fumbled. Okay, sorry. That was NCAA 14, if you're listening on the pod. Okay, Brandon.
Yeah, give me some highlights from the chat.
Brandon says they went back and forth on some things we talked about earlier. Brandon brought up that Alabama's bad wins look rough, which is very true. Mm-hmm. We talked about all that.
Playing the SEC, though.
And then you've got Brandon saying, one of my favorite things I've read all day. I say, screw all the rankings and just put all the competing teams in the bubble. Super ambiguous. Nobody will like it. But it would just be, these are all the teams potentially in contention since the numbers mean nothing. They're in the hunt.
That actually wouldn't have been a horrible way to do it and leave the rest up to us in our own mind until the day of.
Yep.
I don't hate that.
Because by the way, that Brandon, and that doesn't take away from TV deals, which is what a lot of this crap is, right?
Yeah, it still gives us a TV show to watch.
That ruins the TV. No, the TV, they can still argue about who they think their rankings are. I have always said, and if you've listened to this podcast a long time, you have heard me say, I did not call this play, but I'm running it. If you, I just had a tight end run a 5-yard rush that was one of the hardest rushes I've ever seen, so we may need to move him in the offseason. If you've listened to this pod a long time, you know this is a drum that I've beat. There shouldn't be any sort of ranking until November. Mm-hmm. Not playoff.
Not AP and everything.
AP and everything.
Coaches, all of it.
Coaches, I don't care. We don't know anything in August about what anyone is going to look like. It's so dumb to sit there and be like, well, based off of what recruiting rankings think, okay, what does that mean to anybody? How many number 1 recruiting classes have made it to the playoff?
Clemson was a top 7 team coming into the year.
Yeah, I mean,
we watched them lose week 1 to Duke, who won 6 games this year.
Yeah,
7, I think.
And
7 and 5.
By the way, great night.
It was an awesome night.
Great night. But again, like the rankings and when they do them make no sense. And then what made it infinitely worse, and what we've said multiple times on this pod tonight, is their reasoning has been terrible. At every turn, they have confused and bumfuzzled people and made people angry.
And not just week to week this year. This has been a year-to-year thing that It feels like the definition of what they do has evolved. And it changed again. What it feels like they did on Sunday, and the things that they found important, and the things that were discussed, and the things that we're arguing about, even last year, 2022, it doesn't feel like we're having the same at all discussions, which we still, with this committee, were promised that it would be the same thing every year, and it wasn't. Yeah. Very early on.
Yeah.
And we're now beating a dead horse, but we're also trying to close this game out.
Yeah, you know what? Let's go ahead and close out. Pod, thank you for listening. We love you. We will talk to you next week for a little bit of a bowl roundup. Get your bowl sheets out. Start studying.
Yeah, next week, I haven't looked at our schedule, so I won't promise a day, but I want to say either Tuesday or Thursday are probably my best days.
Okay, yeah, we'll
play with that
next week. We'll figure
the games start Friday or Saturday.
Tuesday's my first day at my new job, too, so that could be really fun.
Would you want to do it that way?
Yeah, why not?
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know. Sometimes people have like information overload at a new job, but that's not you. You're built different.
I would love to celebrate my first day at a new job, and if it's an awesome job, I'm going to be jacked podcast because we will have gained at least 1 new listener.
I can promise you it's an awesome job. Mary Caroline Sharp is one of your coworkers.
That's a good point. All right, podcast. Thank you so much. We love you. Twitch, we're going to hang on here for a sec and keep talking about this. That was 1:16:39 on the pod. Yeah, dude. I love this sport so much, and one of the reasons why I love it is also why I hate it so much. Yeah. It's so stupid. It's so dumb. But also,
I don't like it when it's heartbreakingly dumb, though.
Like, dude, Jordan Travis has to just be like Michael Cera's character in Arrested Development right now.
It is.
Just the Charlie Brown Christmas time music's playing, and he's just like walking around campus sad with his backpack.
There are more positions on a football field than quarterback, but it's just so weird how quarterback is.
It's also he was
such an end-all, be-all, and I mean I'm not saying it's wrong.
Such an epicenter of their offense. Like everything flowed through him. Even when the run game was on, it was on because they had to think about him as a threat.
FSU's got at least 2, and then maybe 3. But at least 2 first-round picks, and none of them were Travis. And I think about that. I think about FSU wasn't ranked top 5 this year, top 10 this year because Jordan Travis came back. They were ranked that high because Jared Verse decided to come back and not go to the NFL. That's when people started hopping on that hype train. So it is a little weird.
We've got some chat in here. The more I think about it, I think it's harder for teams to get mad with 4 auto qualifiers and 8 at large. If you're the first team left out, then too bad. You should have won your conference.
No, if it was next year, Louisville wouldn't have been playing on Saturday. Oh, my gosh. Louisville wouldn't have been playing on Saturday to play spoiler to FSU and win an ACC title. They would have been playing to win an ACC title and go to the playoff. You get both now, every time.
Sorry for your
headphones,
if you're listening.
Since we're just talking,
and
yeah.
I just screamed lacrosse in your ear.
That is actually maybe the main reason I'm excited to see auto qualifiers, only because I do worry that 12 devalues, because the whole, why do the games matter crowd isn't going to like the 12-team playoff either. We are devaluing the regular season by adding 12, but what we are doing is making that last weekend matter so much infinitely more that the first weekend in December will always be an awesome weekend.
Yeah.
Because every time your team is in that, and that is speaking in any of the Power 4, so this year, Iowa, had they upset them, they have more reason to play that game again. They are playing not just for a Big Ten title, which I don't think kids these days care much about than when we were in college, and I could be speaking in too many generalities.
No, I've got something on this. Keep going.
I don't think kids care as much about conference titles anymore. So now you're telling them, hey, you're not just playing for a conference title, you're also playing for a playoff berth. Yeah, you guys might have lost to, let's pretend that, let's think of a team. I mean, who did Iowa lose? Who did Louisville lose? Yeah, Louisville may have lost to Kentucky last week. You know how you erase that? Go to the damn playoff. Yep. That's pretty cool.
Yep.
Now it'll suck when we see 8-4 Missouri randomly make the playoff one year, but
Brandon said the way people talk about quarterback annoys me so much. The analysts were like, "It's the hardest position in any sport. You can't play without one."
Then why is Brock Purdy about to win MVP and go and play in a Super Bowl?
I mean, that's not true. Like anybody who says that has never been a starting pitcher.
Brock Purdy is the #1 MVP leader for the Heisman betting odds right now, and it's not because he's the greatest quarterback in the world. It's because he's throwing to great players at other positions, and he's good. I'm not saying he sucks, but he's there because of.
I hate that I just said starting pitcher there. Hockey goalie.
Goalie.
Go be a hockey goalie and tell me that quarterback's the hardest position in sports. You have a piece of rubber going 80 miles an hour where they're trying not to hit you, and your instinct is to move out of the way.
Would you rather do that, or would you rather have Javon Curse running at you at 80 miles an hour? I don't know. That's tough.
I mean, I would rather have neither, but that's not what we're talking about.
That's why I'm not still playing sports. Not because I wasn't good enough. It's because I just didn't feel like it anymore.
Brandon mentioned one of my favorite tweets yesterday was someone tweeted, watching Greg McElroy tell me a team can't overcome subpar QB play to win a natty is comedy gold.
That was good.
It was.
That was a great tweet.
I will say, the 2 games where Greg McElroy needed to be that guy, in the SEC title game in 2009 and the national championship in 2009, he was. He was an absolute stud, and he sucked the rest of the season. His entire career was formed on where's Mark Ingram, how do I get him this ball out in the flat or during a screen pass to get up my number.
Or suck at Julio down there somewhere.
Yeah.
All right, well, we are advancing the week. Is there anything else we need to do in the chat? Because I'm getting kind of hungry.
Dude, this was awesome. This chat was the best.
Thanks for stepping up, the 3 of you.
Thank you guys
and Spencer at the beginning.
For hanging out, and Spencer at the beginning, obviously. I'll see most of you probably this week at some point. Mm-hmm. And Brandon, I won't see you soon, but I will see you soon.
I'm going to try something. I'm going to wait till this is done because I can't try it, so I started this a little early. There is a screen that I made, mostly for when we're just streaming and not talking ball, but it was such a bitch when we were setting this up because every time I clicked it, it would crash both the game and OBS. So because our thing is over and we can try it now, I'm actually going to try it. And so we will either see this screen for the very first time live or it will be the end of the podcast. So had fun with y'all. Hey, it's actually working.
It worked, dude.
Oh my gosh, we can actually
awesome.
Play the game and it's just us up there and I can put that. I've been afraid to use this screen all year because it crashed every time I did it during testing.
Can I ask you something about this screen? Why is there not a border on the right?
You're just not. No, there should be. Oh, I've moved stuff around. It's been messed. I need to rework it.
I'm not like complaining. I'm just.
Yeah, I mean, you see down there with the PI, that's not pixel perfect, but I can fix this and it can work, and I'm very excited.
Yeah, that's huge.
Awesome. Okay, well, it's been fun, guys. Thanks for hanging out.